That evening, right in the middle of Thanksgiving dinner, my son suddenly threw a cold sentence onto the table. "Dad, we've decided to sell this farm. You're no longer capable enough to live here." I froze. The knife in my hand stopped mid-cut on the golden roasted turkey. The room fell into complete silence, broken only by the ticking of the old clock on the wall. I stared straight at the son I had raised and whispered, my voice trembling but sharp as a blade. "If you think you can get rid of me that easily, you will regret it. This is only the beginning." You won't believe what I did right after that. My name is Robert Miller, 67 years old, a farmer in Texas. I lost my wife 2 months ago. Today is my first Thanksgiving dinner with only one hope that my children and grandchildren would come back home. I prepared everything just as Helen, my late wife, used to do. A 12-pound turkey stuffed with bread, onions, and celery, mashed potatoes drenched in gravy, and a pumpkin pie filling the kitchen with its sweet aroma. I carefully set the table, lit 2 candles, and placed a vase of yellow chrysanthemums she always loved. I wanted to believe that if the meal was warm enough, then this house would still be a home for my family. For 40 years I worked under the scorching Texas sun, summers burning my skin, winters cutting into my bones, all to give my 2 children a decent education. Daniel, now 40, has his own family and career in Dallas. Laura, 35, is a designer in California. I sacrificed my youth, my health, everything, just so they could live more comfortably than I did. And tonight, I thought I would finally enjoy a simple happiness, seeing them gathered in the house I had built with sweat and blood. But instead of gratitude, instead of smiles, I heard those words. Dad would live easier if he left this old farm behind. I looked at Daniel, then turned to Laura. She avoided my eyes, twisting the napkin tightly in her lap, as if it had all been discussed beforehand. I felt the blood rush to my face, my heart pounding in my chest. Every effort, every ounce of love, every sacrifice, trampled in an instant. I set the knife down, gritting my teeth. Easier for who? No one answered. Only cold stares and heavy silence. In that moment, I knew for certain they no longer saw this as home, and I also knew this would not end here. The next morning, as the first rays of sunlight slipped through the kitchen window, I poured myself a cup of coffee. The strong, bitter smell filled the air, still mixed with the lingering aroma of last night's turkey. I wanted to sit quietly, sip slowly, and let my mind settle after the cruel words my son had thrown across the dinner table. But the shrill ring of the phone shattered the fragile silence. The screen lit up with a familiar name, Daniel. I sighed. A part of me hoped he was calling to apologize, or at least to explain. I pressed the button to answer. "Dad." His voice was firm, cold, without hesitation. "You shouldn't be living alone anymore. I've already found a buyer for the farm." The cup slipped from my hand. Coffee splattered across the tiled floor, dark liquid spreading into messy stains. My heart pounded. My ears rang. My hands trembled uncontrollably. I couldn't tell if it was from the burn of the coffee or from the shock of his words. What did you just say?" I stammered. "You heard me," Daniel replied flatly. "This is the best decision for everyone." I gripped the phone so hard my knuckles turned white. The air in the kitchen thickened, heavy like smoke. In the oven, last night's turkey reheated, crackling faintly, mocking the silence now hanging between us. "You made this decision without asking me once?" My voice shook with fury. Daniel exhaled a long, weary sigh. "Dad, you don't understand. The farm is too much for you. You're old. You can't handle it alone anymore. Life will be easier if you live closer to us, in the city. You don't need to work yourself to death out there." A bitter laugh escaped me. It tasted like ash. "Easier for who, Daniel? For me or for you?" The line went quiet. So quiet I thought I could hear the blood rushing through my veins. I slumped into a chair, eyes drifting aimlessly around the kitchen. My gaze landed on the framed wedding photo of Helen and me hanging crooked in the corner. She once told me, "No matter what happens, this house will always be home." And yet here I was, listening to her son, the boy we raised with our own hands, plotting to rip that home away. "Did you talk to your sister about this?" I asked, voice quivering with anger. "We just want what's best for you." He repeated it like a script, every word hollow. I clenched my jaw, teeth grinding together. "The best for me, or the most convenient for you?" Silence again. I heard a faint murmur in the background, maybe his wife whispering. Then Daniel's voice returned. "I'll send you the paperwork to sign. Everything will be settled soon." "What paperwork? Who gave you the right to decide for me?" I shouted into the phone. "Dad, please don't make this harder than it needs to be." His voice hardened, and then click. The line went dead. The flat beep, beep, beep rang in my ears like a funeral bell. I stared at the darkened screen, chest heaving, hands shaking. Rage surged through me, hot and wild. I bent down to pick up the broken pieces of the coffee cup. A sharp shard sliced into my palm, blood welling up in a thin red line. I watched it drip onto the floor, merging with the coffee stain. Black and red, bitterness and blood. I felt no pain, only numbness. I buried my face in my hands. Memories rushed in like a flood. Daniel wobbling as he took his first steps across the lawn. Laura tugging at my sleeve to be carried into the wheat fields. Helen laughing as she watched them both grow. I had given everything, my strength, my youth, my health for those children. And now, this was the return. Betrayal. Cold, calculated betrayal. The sunlight pushed harder through the window, pale and harsh. The kitchen reeked of reheated turkey, scorched coffee, and iron-tanged blood. A cruel cocktail of scents suffocating me. I sat frozen, a statue of despair. The clock ticked, 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 each second a knife carving deeper into my chest. And then, from somewhere inside me, a spark flickered. Not hope, something else, something sharper, resolve. I inhaled deeply, wiped the blood from my hand, and fixed my eyes on the flames burning steadily inside the oven. I said nothing, but inside my mind, a decision was already taking shape. That afternoon I heard the sound of a car stopping at the gate. A shiny black SUV luxury, the kind Helen once smiled at and said, "Our daughter's made it. We don't have to worry anymore." The door opened, and Laura, 35 years old, stepped out. She looked sharp, polished, wrapped in a beige coat. Her high heels clicked against the dirt path leading up to the house. I opened the door, forcing a smile. "You're here." She kissed my cheek quickly, a perfunctory gesture, the expensive scent of her perfume filling the air so foreign to the smells of earth and wood that defined this old house. She set her handbag on the table and sat down, in that chair. The wooden chair with the floral cushion, the one Helen always used when she read her books. My chest tightened. That sight was a knife sliding straight into my heart. "Dad," Laura began, her voice soft but firm, "I don't think you can stay here alone any longer. You can move into the basement at my place. It's spacious, comfortable. We'll take care of everything." I looked around the house, the wooden walls I had nailed myself, the ceiling beams I had painted by hand, the door that Helen and I installed together one freezing winter back in 1985. Every corner carried sweat, memory, love. And yet, to my daughter, it was all just inconvenient. I swallowed hard, a sharp ache rising in my chest. "You want me to leave the very house I built with my own hands?" Laura lowered her eyes, fidgeting with a golden ring that sparkled on her finger. "Don't think too much, Dad. You'll be more comfortable. The basement has windows. You'll have your own space." I let out a bitter laugh. My own space? A dark basement under her house? Instead of the farm where I poured out my entire life? My eyes drifted to a picture frame on the shelf. Helen smiling, holding both children in the front yard, the Texas sun pouring down. I could still hear their laughter, their little feet stomping across the porch, the smell of Helen's apple pie cooling on the windowsill. Compared to that memory, Laura sitting here, legs crossed, speaking as though she were a judge handing down a verdict, the past felt like a cruel, unreachable dream. For the first time, I felt small, unnecessary, like an old, worn-out object cluttering the home I had built. "You need to think about your old age," Laura said firmly, lifting her gaze. "Daniel and I only want what's best for you." Her words landed like stones. I stared at my hands, scarred and calloused from decades in the fields. Hands that once carried her, fed her, worked for her, and now they meant nothing. A shiver ran down my spine. Helen was gone. Daniel had already betrayed me. And here was Laura, offering me a basement as if she were offering charity to a beggar. I turned away, hiding the tears stinging my eyes. Humiliation burned inside me, hot and bitter. I had feared this day for years, the day my own children would no longer see me as family. And now it was here. Laura sat comfortably, sipping her water, oblivious. Every word she spoke, every casual gesture, shredded what remained of my dignity. I walked to the window. The field stretched endlessly outside, dry grass swaying in the wind. For 40 years I believed I was rooted here, a part of this land. Now even the roots felt cut by the very people I had raised. I gripped the wooden frame of the window so hard my nails dug into the grain. My whole body trembled. Shame poured through me, heavier than any labor I had endured. Helen, if only you were here. What would you think, seeing your daughter treat her father like excess baggage? I turned back. Laura was still there, sitting in Helen's chair, as if it had always been hers. Legs crossed, face composed, a picture of control. My teeth bit into my lip, drawing blood, as I forced myself to swallow every scream clawing at my throat. I would have to swallow this humiliation, but that doesn't mean I will accept it forever. That night, after Laura left, the house sank into silence. I walked slowly into Helen's bedroom. Each step felt heavy, as though I was treading directly on memories. The room was still, exactly as she had left it. Her pillow carried the faint scent of lavender soap. On the chair lay the knitted scarf she had made for me last winter, folded neatly as always. The soft glow of the lamp cast warm light across the walls, making me feel, for one fleeting moment, that Helen had only stepped outside and would return any minute. I sat on the edge of the bed, my hand brushing over the worn sheets. A sharp ache flared in my chest. For decades, this room had been my refuge, the place Helen's voice would comfort me whenever the weight of the farm pressed down too hard. Now, it was a place of absence, a shrine to what was lost. My eyes fell on the wooden nightstand. Something compelled me to open its drawer. Between a few yellowed books and an old jewelry box lay a faded blue envelope. Its edges were frayed, its paper aged. On the front, in the handwriting I knew better than my own, were the words, "For Robert." My hands trembled as I picked it up. My heart pounded like I had unearthed treasure. I opened it carefully, and inside was a property deed. My breath caught. The farm had been paid off years ago. No mortgages, no liens, nothing hanging over us. I froze. For so long, I had lived with the burden of debt, believing we still owed the bank, that I was only a caretaker until the bills were done. But Helen had paid it off quietly, carrying the burden herself so I wouldn't have to worry. A smaller sheet slipped from the envelope. A letter, written in Helen's graceful hand. "Robert, you are not a burden. Don't you ever believe that. If the day comes when our children forget you, when they treat you as excess, remember this. You still have yourself. I have prepared a place for you. Somewhere you will be free. Somewhere no one can control you. Don't be afraid. Don't surrender. You deserve this." I read it once, twice, a third time. Each word struck me like a hammer, shattering the chains around my chest. Tears filled my eyes, not from despair, but from something different. Strength. Fire. I stood and walked to the large mirror by the dresser. A tired old man stared back at me. White hair, deep wrinkles, eyes darkened by sleepless nights. But behind the exhaustion, I saw its flames flickering, steady and alive. I clenched my fist, my knuckles whitening. "I will not let them look down on me again," I said aloud. My voice was strong, echoing in the empty room. Outside, the wind howled across the fields, but I didn't feel the chill. Inside me, a fire burned hotter than any winter cold. Helen had given me more than papers, more than secrets. She had given me back belief that I was still someone, that I still had a choice. I folded the letter and slid it into my shirt pocket. I wanted to carry it close, to carry her with me. From this moment on, I was no longer the man sitting quietly while his children stripped away his dignity. I was Robert Miller, and I still owned my life. I walked back down to the kitchen. The shards of the broken coffee cup still littered the floor. This time my hands did not shake as I gathered them up. I tossed them into the trash. The coffee stains, the dried blood, I scrubbed them clean. Each motion was a declaration, each wipe of the cloth erasing weakness, sweeping away defeat. When I finished, I stood tall. My breathing was steady. My chest no longer felt heavy. I was not the man Daniel tried to dismiss, nor the father Laura tried to bury in a basement. I was myself again. I stepped into the living room and looked out the wide window. Beyond, the field stretched endlessly under the silver glow of the moon. The grass swayed in the wind, whispering secrets of survival. The night was silent, but within me life surged with new energy. I knew this was not the end. This was only the beginning of a fight for myself, for Helen's memory, for everything we had built. I closed my eyes, whispered softly, as though Helen could still hear me. And this is only the beginning. 2 days later, I heard the sound of cars pulling up outside the gate. Not one, but two. Daniel stepped out first, crisp suit and tie. Laura followed, clutching a thick folder. Behind them came a man I didn't recognize. Glasses, leather briefcase, a lawyer. The door swung open. Daniel walked in, voice sharp. "Dad, we need to talk." I folded my arms, standing in the middle of the living room. "Good. I've been waiting to hear this." Laura set the folder down on the table and pushed it toward me. "This is the contract to sell the farm. Everything's ready. You just need to sign." I looked down. My name was printed in bold on the first page. A stab of pain pierced my chest. I raised my head, eyes locked on them. "You plan to sell without asking me?" Daniel inhaled deeply, then spoke as if issuing a command. "Dad, you have to face reality. You're too old. This farm is more than you can handle." A bitter laugh escaped my lips. Reality? For who? For you? Or for me? The air in the room snapped tight, like a rope ready to break. The lawyer glanced nervously at them but stayed silent. I stepped closer, my voice hard. "Who paid for your college tuition? Who sweated under the Texas sun, rain or shine, to keep this house standing? Who gave up his health, his youth, his body so you could have a future?" Laura lowered her head. Daniel pressed his lips together. Neither spoke. I pressed on. "While you were in classrooms, I, Robert Miller, was in the fields at 5 in the morning. While you had new shoes and books, your mother and I skipped meals just to afford them. And today, you sit here, trying to push me out of the home I built with my own hands?" Daniel slammed his palm on the table. "Stop acting like you carried it all alone. Laura and I have been talking about this for a long time. We can't let you destroy yourself out here." My blood ran cold. "Talking? For how long?" Laura whispered, almost ashamed. "Months. We've had to think ahead. Not just the farm, but your retirement account too. You don't need to keep it. We can manage it for you." "Oh." My heart stopped. Their words cut deeper than any blade. Not just the house, not just the land. Even the last savings of my life, they were already reaching for them. I slammed my fist against the table, my eyes burning red. What do you take me for? A child under guardianship? Some useless old man you can manipulate? The lawyer tried to interject. Mr. Miller, this is a reasonable arrangement. You'll have better care, and legally— Shut up, I roared. My voice thundered through the room, freezing him mid-sentence. No one, do you hear me? No one decides for me. Daniel clenched his fists. You're being stubborn. Don't you see you're past your limits? You can't keep this up. I stepped in close, staring directly into his eyes. Stubborn, or sharper than you think? I'm still sane, and I know damn well you're not doing this for me. You're doing it for the money. The room froze. Laura trembled, tears welling, but she didn't deny it. Daniel turned his face aside, jaw tight, silent. Their silence was the only confirmation I needed. Slowly, I gathered the folder and hurled it to the floor. Papers scattered across the room like fallen leaves. All you want is to turn me into a shadow, but I will never sign. I turned, leaving the living room, heart pounding, breath ragged. I knew in that moment the bond between father and children had shattered beyond repair. I stood on the porch, staring at the fields bathed in a blood-red sunset. The wind whipped dirt into the air, stinging my face. Inside me, one truth carved itself deep, and I knew, after that day, nothing would ever be whole again. 3 days after the confrontation, a thick envelope arrived in the mail. A red stamp from a law office was pressed across the front. I sat on the porch, hands trembling as I tore it open. Inside was a stack of legal papers, a petition for guardianship over me. My body went rigid. The black printed words cut into my eyes like knives. Daniel and Laura were listed as the petitioners. The text read, "Father is no longer capable of managing his assets. Therefore, guardianship is necessary to protect his interests." I laughed, a hollow, broken sound. Protect my interests? Whose interests, really? Not mine. I folded the papers shut and let them fall onto the table. My chest felt heavy, like a stone sinking into cold water. My whole body sagged under the weight of betrayal. That afternoon, the house was dark. I didn't bother turning on the lights. I sat in the living room, my shadow stretching long across the wooden floor. Familiar objects loomed around me like ghosts. Our wedding photo hung crooked on the wall. Helen's knitted scarf draped over the chair, the ceramic mugs she once loved. I closed my eyes, and memories swept in. I heard Helen's voice echoing, "Robert, as long as we're together, we have a home." Oh. I saw her smile as she carried a steaming apple pie to the table. I saw the children, small again, barefoot, running through the grass in the yard. And I saw myself, younger, arms wrapped around all of them, heart overflowing. When I opened my eyes, the vision was gone. Before me was only a bare table. No Helen, no children, only me, an old man in an empty house. Night fell. I set a lonely dinner, a bowl of reheated soup, a slice of stale bread. I sat at the long dining table once filled with laughter and chatter. Now the only laughter I heard drifted faintly from the neighbor's house. The clinking of glasses, the voices of children, their joy pierced me like shards of glass. I lowered my head, tears slipping silently into the soup. Never in my life had I felt betrayal this deep. Not by strangers, by my own blood. After pushing away the untouched meal, I walked to the small study. I rummaged through an old file cabinet, looking for land documents. My hand brushed against a sealed envelope tucked inside Helen's financial papers. I pulled it out. Inside was a life insurance policy. My eyes scanned the name of the beneficiary. I froze. Not Daniel, not Laura, but Emily, my granddaughter, 16 years old. I stared at the page in disbelief. Helen had chosen the granddaughter, not the children, as if she had known, as if she understood that our children might forget loyalty, but the next generation still carried innocence. I sank into the chair, both hands clutching the paper. My heart broke with grief, but beneath it flickered a strange relief. Helen had not left everything to them. She had left a thread of hope elsewhere, in Emily, in someone untainted. I leaned back, closing my eyes, face tilted toward the dark ceiling. Everything around me felt fractured, collapsing. The house that once sheltered us now felt like a prison. The children who once filled me with pride were strangers plotting against me. I gripped the letter tightly, my body trembling. My voice cracked in the stillness, barely more than a whisper. This family has shattered beyond repair. One morning, I sat on the old wooden chair out on the porch, a steaming cup of coffee in my hand. The Texas dawn stretched wide across the open fields. The ground was still wet with dew, each drop glistening like tiny crystals. The silence was so deep I could hear the rhythm of my own heartbeat, steady, calm. I took a sip of the coffee, the bitterness mixed with its rich aroma lingering on my tongue. I let it move slowly, savoring each second. After weeks drenched in anger and betrayal, I finally understood a truth I could no longer deny. I had lost my old family. Daniel and Laura were no longer the children I once carried in my arms. Between us now was a canyon that could never be crossed. But losing them didn't mean I had lost everything. I still had myself, and I still had Emily. My 16-year-old granddaughter with bright eyes and an innocent smile still calling me Grandpa with a voice that carried no lies. When I read the life insurance Helen had left for her, I understood. Helen had looked further than I ever did. She had put her trust in a seed of the future, one still untouched by greed. And me, though I had lost the home, I thought I knew I still had a reason to go on. I set the cup down and gazed toward the horizon. The morning light did more than touch the fields. It opened a path forward. Helen's words returned to me. I have prepared a place for you. She hadn't meant this house. She had meant the small villa she had purchased in Portugal. A place by the sea, under a clear sky, with a rose garden she had always dreamed of. A smile tugged at my lips. Helen had always been the one to think ahead. She had drawn me a map, given me a way out, a chance to begin again. I no longer had to shackle myself to these empty walls. I could leave, carrying her memory, and rebuild in a place she had chosen for me. I rose to my feet and walked into the back garden. The soil lay bare after a harsh winter. I took a spade and dug a small hole. In my hand was a young rose bush, the very kind Helen had loved. I placed it gently in the earth, covering the roots, sprinkling water over it. My rough, calloused hands were streaked with dirt, but I felt no heaviness. Instead, I felt light. Watching the small rose settle into the ground, I saw myself in it, cut back, buried deep, yet still capable of rising and blooming again. Helen used to say, "Roses always return, no matter how cruel the winter." Today I believed her more than ever. I sat back on the porch steps, the morning breeze running through my silver hair. For the first time in months I felt no rage, no bitterness pressing on my chest, only peace. I knew then I would leave Texas. I would go to Portugal, live in the villa Helen had left, and tend to her rose garden. If Emily chose to come with me, I would welcome her so she could know what a true home feels like. The painful memories would remain, but they no longer bound me. They had become the foundation on which I would build anew. I realized that from the wreckage, strength can still be found. I looked up at the rising sun, its golden light flooding the fields. A new beginning, a new life, and this time I would walk it on my own 2 feet, without fear, without chains. "Helen," I whispered into the breeze, "I'm ready." Life does not always end with a perfect resolution. Sometimes the people we love most are the very ones who leave us with the deepest wounds. Yet, from those very fragments, we learn how to stand again, how to find peace within ourselves. I have come to accept that I cannot change the past. nor can I force others to love me the way they once did. The only choice I truly have is how I live from this moment forward, living for the present, for trust, for the next generation that still carries innocence. Each dawn, the light will always rise, a reminder that no matter how long the night lasts, a new day will come. And I choose to walk into it carrying memories but not chained by them. If your own family turned their back on you, what would you do to find peace again? If this story resonates with you, follow this channel to share and discover more stories of struggle, resilience, and hope.